She left him at the altar. Now he decides her fate in court. Elias Monroe stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the lapels of his suit jacket for the 5th time. It was the best suit he could afford. Simple, charcoal gray, tailored by an old family friend who gave him a discount because she believed in him. His hands trembled slightly as he tugged at the collar, smoothing the crisp white shirt beneath. His heart was racing, faster than ever before. Today was supposed to be the beginning of forever. His phone buzzed beside him. Congratulatory messages from friends, cousins, a text from his mother. "Proud of you, my son. Your father would be too." He smiled softly. His father had passed before seeing this day. But if he had, Elias knew he would have stood at the front pew, grinning ear to ear, watching his son, a boy from the South Side, marry the woman he loved. Miranda Wexler. Beautiful, fierce, soft when no one else was looking. She had seen him when no one else did. Not just the boy from the wrong neighborhood, not just the scholarship student. She saw his mind, his ambition, his soul. He thought of the first time she kissed him, behind the university library where no one could see. Her hand in his, her breath shaky, her eyes scared and wild and perfect. She had told him, whispered into his ear, "They won't understand. But I don't care. I love you, Eli." His chest tightened at the memory. Outside the small chapel, the guests gathered. Whispers hummed like bees. Strange choice, she could have had any man. "Did you see her father's face last month? Like death warmed over." Why him? No money, no family name. He heard them. He always heard them. But he didn't care. Because Miranda chose him. She said yes. She said forever. The flowers were already set, white roses in glass vases. The candles flickered gently on the altar. The music began to swell softly. The priest gave him a nod. It was time. Elias took his place at the front. He breathed in deeply, watching the double doors. Waiting. And waiting. The music looped again. The guests glanced at each other. He checked his watch. 10 minutes late. Maybe she was nervous. Brides were always nervous, right? 15 minutes. The murmurs grew louder. Is she coming? What's wrong? Maybe the dress tore. His hands clenched into fists. His smile, forced now, twitched at the corners. The priest approached quietly, leaning close. "Do you want to step aside, son? Maybe call her?" Elias shook his head. No. She was coming. She promised. But behind closed doors, across town, Miranda Wexler sat in the backseat of a black car. Her wedding dress, lace, pearl buttons, wrinkled and clutched in shaking fists. Tears streaked down her perfect makeup. Her breathing was shallow, her chest tight. Her father sat beside her, silent, cold, smiling. "Good girl," he said finally, his voice like the snap of dry wood. "You made the right choice. Do you think that boy could give you this life? This family? This name? You'd have nothing. Less than nothing. You'd have him. A burden forever." She had screamed at him last night. Fought him. Cried. But this morning, before the car came, he said it one last time. "You marry him, you are dead to us. No money. No home. No name. No family. Forever." And she broke. Her heart cracked into pieces. She thought of Elias standing there, waiting. She wanted to run to him. But her legs wouldn't move. She was trapped, in silk, lace, fear. "Drive," her father said to the chauffeur. And the car pulled away from the chapel. From her life. From him. Back in the church, 25 minutes had passed. The guests were restless now. Some standing, whispering in pity. The priest cleared his throat. The organist stopped playing. Elias stood frozen. "She's not coming," someone whispered. "I told you this would happen," another voice hissed. He swallowed. His vision blurred. His breath hitched in his chest. His phone buzzed again, an unknown number. A text, "I'm sorry. I can't." That was it. No explanation. No goodbye. No mercy. The chapel doors never opened. His mother came to the front, hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with pain. He gently brushed her hand away. Without a word, he stepped down from the altar. He walked down the aisle slowly. Past the whispering crowd. Past the fading music. Past the flowers that wilted without sunlight. Each step felt like lifting a mountain. Outside, the sky was gray. The photographer lowered his camera. The florist sighed and began to gather the arrangements. Elias stood on the church steps, his hands hanging loose by his sides, staring into the street. He felt hollow, empty, like a man buried alive. He didn't cry. Not yet. But something inside him broke, quietly, finally. A small, bright part of him that had dared to believe in fairy tales, in hope, in crossing bridges built by love. Gone. In the silence of that moment, in the cold wind brushing his face, Elias Monroe made a quiet promise to himself. They said I wasn't good enough. They said I would never rise. They will be wrong. The next morning, his ring sat on the kitchen table. Alone. And Elias Monroe, heart shattered, pride bleeding, opened his laptop and searched for law schools. The world had told him no. Now, he would make it impossible for them to ignore his yes. The first few weeks after the broken wedding were a blur. Elias Monroe stayed inside his small apartment with the curtains drawn. The world outside didn't interest him. His phone filled with messages, most of them pity, some curiosity, a few cruel whispers masked as concern. He didn't answer. He sat at the table, staring at the unused honeymoon brochures, the untouched wedding ring, the suit he'd worn folded over the chair. Everything smelled like disappointment. At night, sleep refused him. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, Miranda's face haunting him. Her smile. Her laughter. Her whispering, "I love you, Eli. No one else matters." Lies. Or maybe not lies. Maybe fear. Her father's face burned in his mind. Cold. Dismissive. That final warning, "You'll never be enough, boy. She'll wake up and leave you. They all do." He was right. Elias wanted to disappear. But something inside him, small, fragile, angry, refused to die. On the 10th night, in the dark glow of his laptop screen, he made a decision. Law school. He'd always dreamed of it. As a boy, he'd read about great black lawyers, Thurgood Marshall, Charles Hamilton Houston. Men who fought for justice, for dignity, for respect. Elias opened the application form and filled it out, without telling anyone. He wrote his personal statement in the middle of the night, honest and raw. "I know what it means to be dismissed. To be told you are not enough. I know injustice, not the courtroom kind, but the quiet, daily cruelty of being unseen. I will be the voice that cannot be silenced. I will be the hand that turns the scale back to balance." He clicked submit. Weeks passed. He went back to his quiet job as a legal assistant, earning barely enough to pay rent. But this time, there was a fire in him. One by one, the letters came. Rejections. Wait lists. Then, finally, a thin envelope from Howard University School of Law. Accepted. Full scholarship. He sat on the floor of his apartment, staring at the letter, the weight of it crushing his chest. He smiled for the first time in months. That summer, Elias packed 2 bags and moved to Washington, D.C. alone. No friends. No family nearby. No Miranda. Just books. Just hope. Law school was brutal. Endless nights reading cases, briefs, old rulings. Professors who barely looked his way. White classmates who gave him those same old looks, pity, curiosity, silent judgment. But Elias worked harder than all of them. Quiet. Relentless. Focused. He spoke only when necessary, but when he did, the room fell silent. His professors took notice. "You have a mind for the law, Mr. Monroe," one of them said. Sharp. Controlled. Dangerous, in the right way. Elias nodded, said nothing. But inside, he felt it. The old wound healing. Slowly. Carefully. In his final year, he interned at the public defender's office. He fought for clients who had no one. Men like his father, women like his mother, kids from broken neighborhoods like the one he'd escaped. He won cases that others threw away. He earned respect that money could never buy. His name grew. His confidence rose. After graduation, he passed the bar on his first try. Then came job offers. Good ones. First, public defender. Then, state prosecutor. 10 years ago, he'd been the boy waiting at the altar. Now, he stood in courtrooms, commanding attention, arguing law with quiet fire. He never spoke Miranda's name. Never mentioned the wedding. not once. But in the deepest part of him, her face was always there. The fuel that burned quietly behind every long night, every grueling case, every gavel strike. Years passed. His reputation soared. He was appointed federal judge at the age of 35, one of the youngest in the state. The day his robe arrived, he stood in front of the mirror, adjusting it gently over his shoulders. He smiled. He did not need flowers, or tuxedos, or whispered promises. He was no longer the man she left behind. He was the man her father swore he'd never become. Judge Elias Monroe. And fate, so patient, so precise, was circling back. Courtroom 3B was filled to the brim that morning. Reporters lined the back row, pens and cameras ready. Lawyers murmured by the walls. Curious faces leaned forward in hushed silence, sensing that today's hearing carried more weight than the papers let on. At the front, Miranda Wexler sat still, her perfect white blouse too crisp, her hands trembling ever so slightly. The glow she once wore, the easy smile, the effortless charm, was gone. Her skin looked pale, her eyes restless. Beside her sat her father, Richard Wexler. The same man who once sneered across a kitchen table and told Elias Monroe he'd never amount to anything. The man who whispered to Miranda the night before the wedding. He's no one, darling. No money. No name. A black boy from the gutter. You can do better. You will do better. Now the old man sat hunched, his famous confidence cracked. The mighty Richard Wexler, real estate king, backroom dealer, country club monarch, silent, his lips pressed tight. His hair grayer. His shoulders smaller. His eyes, for once, uncertain. Miranda could feel him stiff beside her. Neither spoke. All rise. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Elias Monroe presiding. The door opened. He walked in. Elias Monroe. In his robe. Strong. Still. Entirely unshaken. For a moment, time stood still. Richard Wexler's jaw clenched. Miranda gasped softly, her breath catching in her throat. But Elias didn't look at them. Not yet. He adjusted the files in front of him, smoothed his robe with measured grace, and cleared his throat. Be seated. The courtroom Saturday. The tension did not. Miranda glanced sideways at her father, whose face had gone pale, his famous scowl cracked in the corners. He knew. He knew. And then Elias spoke. Case number 47C. The State versus Miranda Wexler. Defendant charged with embezzlement, fraud, obstruction of justice. Ms. Wexler, how do you plead? His voice, steady, smooth, full. Miranda's tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. Her father shifted in his seat, glaring at the judge as if willing him to be the boy from 10 years ago. But the boy was gone. This was a man now. A man holding their fate in his hand. Her lawyer fumbled. Your Honor, the defendant pleads not guilty, but we are open to. Elias raised a hand gently. Proceed with the evidence. For 2 hours, the prosecution unfolded their case. Pages of bank records. Forged contracts. Secret accounts in distant countries. Testimonies of clients betrayed, employees ruined, lives crushed under greed. Miranda sat frozen. Her father sat like a stone, no longer the mighty businessman, just an old man watching the cost of his pride. But Elias never glanced at them. Never faltered. No cruelty. No revenge. Only duty. Only justice. Until the end. When the last witness stepped down and silence fell, Elias slowly removed his reading glasses. He spoke. Ms. Wexler, this court finds you guilty on all counts. You are hereby sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, with restitution to every family harmed by your actions. The gasp that filled the room was sharp as a knife. Miranda's mouth hung open. Her father gripped the table, knuckles white. Elias leaned forward, his voice dropping just enough for only 2 people to hear, Miranda, and the man who once spit venom in his face. I waited for you once, he said softly. But today, I didn't flinch. That's the difference. His gaze, calm and sure, flicked to Richard Wexler, just for a moment. A glance that carried 10 years of quiet triumph. The old man dropped his eyes. No words. No defense. Elias stood, gathered his robe, his papers, and walked away, not just from the bench, but from the past. From their whispers, their warnings, their arrogance. Behind him, Miranda sat small and silent, the weight of 5 years closing around her. And beside her, Richard Wexler, the man who said Elias Monroe would never become anything, could only sit in the courtroom of the boy he tried to bury. A boy who became judge. Who became fate itself. The courthouse lobby was nearly empty when Elias stepped out. His robe hung over his arm, the papers tucked neatly in his hand. His footsteps echoed gently off the marble floors as the weight of the trial, the weight of them, slowly lifted from his shoulders. 10 years. 10 years of building. 10 years of silent fury reshaped into discipline. Into grace. Into law. Behind the heavy doors of Courtroom 3B, Miranda Wexler sat alone, waiting to be processed. Her father beside her, slumped, broken by shame. But Elias didn't look back. He never would. Outside, the sky was wide and clear, blue as glass. He stood on the steps for a moment, breathing the air. And memories came. The little apartment with thin walls and peeling paint. The nights when sleep refused him. The silent mornings when hope felt like a foolish dream. The whispered voices that said, "You'll never make it. You're nobody. You're not for her world." He remembered standing at that altar. Alone. His cheap suit sticking to his skin. Flowers dying in the summer heat. His chest hollow, burning, breaking. And he smiled. Because he no longer needed her apology. No longer needed her to say, "I'm sorry." She had said it without speaking. With her eyes in court. With her fear. With her stunned silence when she realized who he had become. And her father, Richard Wexler, who once sneered, "You'll never be anything," could no longer raise his eyes to meet him. They had buried him once. But he had risen. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in quiet, unstoppable strength. A car horn sounded in the street below. The city went on, indifferent to old wounds and silent victories. Elias walked down the steps slowly, hands in his pockets, his robe tucked under one arm. A judge now. A man his younger self would not even recognize. A man who no longer waited at altars. A man who no longer flinched. As he crossed the plaza, a voice called gently behind him, a young court officer. "Judge Monroe." He turned. "Sir, just wanted to say, that was the finest piece of justice I've ever seen." Elias gave a small, knowing smile. "Justice," he said softly, "always comes. One way or another." And with that, he walked away. Into the sunlight. Into the life he had built, not for her. Not for them. But for himself. And somewhere behind him, in that silent courtroom, 2 broken people sat in the shadow of the man they said would never rise. But rise he did. Higher than they could ever reach. Never underestimate the quiet strength of a determined soul. What seems like rejection or failure today can become the very fire that shapes greatness tomorrow. True success is not built on revenge, but on growth, discipline, and self-worth. Those who doubt you may one day sit in the shadow of the person they never believed you could become. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. You're truly amazing. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing our story family from all around the world. Until next time, stay curious. Who knows what story we'll uncover next?